Smriti ma'am, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to meet you and speak to you. So thank you for giving us time on this session. When you took oath in 2014, you were the youngest minister in Prime Minister Modi's cabinet.
I still am.
Yes.
Just because Anurag is thinner doesn't make him younger.
And when you took oath again in 2019, you came to Delhi as the giant slayer, defeating Rahul Gandhi in
He's
Amethi.
barely a giant, but thank you.
Okay, now I'm looking at how to reframe my questions. Ma'am, from that day, 2014 to now, 8 years, you have had some expectations of yourself and your government. Have those expectations been met?
Maria, when I was a member of the opposition in the year 2012-13, there was a proposal in the then government to have a law to protect children from sexual abuse. That was a need that was societally generated. There were many voices, and one of those voices was my own, where we said that there needs to be a legislative structure to bring to justice those who sexually abuse children, rape children, and there has to be a reporting mechanism. I remember in my Rajya Sabha debate, I had said there is a need to consolidate data on sexual abuse perpetrators, those who have been indicted by law and brought to justice, so that if institutions which hire people where children at least are the most vulnerable lot, such individuals should never be employed. And for institutions to cross-verify the employability prospects of such individuals, there has to be a system set for police verification. I remember I had said it as a part of a debate, a part of my remarks on the legislation. Everybody nodded, but nobody in government responded then. I'm very proud today when I collaborate or when I work with the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now it is, I can't say it is a matter of pride, but at least satisfaction for me as an administrator that this government has collated all that data so that if you want police verification before hiring of individuals, this government has that data set to cross-verify, cross-match. So what became a part of a debate when I was in opposition became a systemic reality today to help children and women and institutions across the country. And I think that is the huge difference between the styles of government of the UPA and the BJP-led NDA. So there are many issues on which I spoke as an opposition member. One was the need to have more and more fast-track courts. If you remember 2013, the then Congress government had announced the Nirbhaya Fund.
That's right.
And consistently for 1 year, I kept on speaking in Parliament with the need to ensure that that money is spent. In that entire year that the Congress was in government, not a penny was spent. And the minute the Modi government came into service, we saw that projects worth 9,000 crores was appraised by the Modi government. That fund falls under the administrative purview of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Today, and this is not possibly publicly known, that in every state, the emergency response service systems are set up under the aegis of that fund by the Government of India. 35 helplines in this country dedicated only to women are run by that fund of the Government of India. In every police station, there is a need to have a women's help desk. We have spoken about it in opposition. It has become a reality today, courtesy the Government of India under Narendra Modi's leadership. I remember we consistently spoke about the need to have an anti-trafficking unit to assist police, especially to protect vulnerable women and children in specially vulnerable areas. But today the government has ensured that an anti-human trafficking unit is set up in every district of the country. I remember we kept on insisting that there has to be not only a fast-track code, but also a year-on-year or month-on-month check as to how many cases are getting disposed. I am proud that this government has set up not only 700 plus fast-track court, but if you look at the month of May, over 91,000 cases have been disposed in the past 2.5 years, only under this system, which is funded again totally by the Government of India. Our country never had a one-stop crisis center for women. Today, Narendra Modi has set up 704 such one-stop crisis centers across 94% districts in this country. 300 more are to be built in the next 2-3 years. And collectively, between only the one-stop center and the women's helpline, 70 lakh women have been rescued, rehabilitated and supported. That's a huge number. Those are lives which reached out for help and got support.
In these 8 years, ma'am, you have held multiple portfolios.
Yes.
HRD, INB, textiles, and now as women and child. You have implemented many schemes. You spoke about some of them as well. What is work in progress and what is very dear to you?
Administration is always work in progress, because you never holistically and honestly, societally reach a utopian state where challenges will not emanate any further. The fact that you are a part of a progressive society that meets with challenges every day, you can be assured as a citizen now that you have a political force that will meet you with solutions as earnestly. You will not be bereft of that effort on behalf of your government. So what brings me a great amount of satisfaction? The education policy in our country changed after 30 years.
Yes.
That change began when we started drafting it when I was Minister Education. I still remember one of my most pleasant memories is walking up to the Honorable Prime Minister, and he said every individual in this country should find a voice in this policy. Because when we did understanding or introspection on how policy had evolved in this country, it was mostly restricted to the power halls of Delhi. Never were parents asked, never were educational institutions, especially in tribal areas in the northeast, they were never asked. We had over 2 lakh village education councils. They were never activated to ask what kind of policy do you want. The Prime Minister said, let's make a democratic process come alive through this education policy initiative. And Maria, we went to every district, every educational institution. We went to every education council in the village. Over 2 lakh such education councils in villages were activated. Tell us what is it that you want in your policy. And today when we see this policy, it has, yes, for the first time in the history of our country, a gender inclusion fund. But the fact is that this is a policy that has been politically accepted across the nation, ideologically accepted across the nation. I'm extremely proud to have contributed to it. The other, if you want me to reflect on the remnants of my administrative experience, I think that leadership is not only about facing challenges in the present, it is also about preparing for challenges that may emanate in the future. In 2014, when the Honorable Prime Minister spoke about social media, technology, there were many in the opposition that scoffed at him. He first determinedly gave us the MyGov platform. And he said, let government ask the citizens' comment or the citizens' views or critique on government policies. And that is when MyGov started. What we also did in that time was to start the first MOOCs platform. Today, EdTech is the buzzword. In 2014, everybody told me, ये क्या MOOCs platform आप बना रहे हो? हिंदुस्तान खुद नहीं बना सकता. At that time, Government of India started a MOOCs platform which today has over 1,000 courses, has over 1.5 crore students. The entire curriculum was digitized and made available free of cost to every citizen. And I remember distinctly in 2014 and 15, people said, isse kya hoga? When the pandemic came, that's when everybody realized that this is what was needed. So I'm grateful that we have leadership that prepared for it. When we talk about literacy, in our country, there was a presumption that literacy means aapko hastakshar karna aata hai. You know your signature, you can write your name, you're literate. The Prime Minister said that if you're talking about the digital divide to be bridged in our country, then individuals need to be digitally literate. At that time, there were many who scoffed at him and said, हमारे देश में फ़ोन कौन इस्तेमाल करता है? हमारे देश में कंप्यूटर कौन इस्तेमाल करता है गाँव में? Today, you have a program called PM Disha, which not many people in Delhi may know of, but 4 crore citizens, especially from rural India, have been made digitally literate. Out of that, 2 crore 80 lakhs are only women. 2 crore 88 lakhs to be precise. That's a huge revolution which has happened in your country. So it is, I think, a great blessing to not only be witness but also participate in that revolution, in that transformation.
And interestingly, we are seeing election after election, because we as political journalists cover ground zero. Women emerge as a constituency for Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
People are taken aback. And I'm extremely fascinated that why people gape at the fact that there are so many women voters who support the Bharatiya Janata Party and particularly Narendra Modi. You see, if you ask me as a female citizen, in this country, never had a female walked up to a politician and said, I need you to build me a toilet. It was never an election agenda. When Modi ji won with an overwhelming majority in 14, he could have easily done what other governments before him had done. Maintain status quo. Or possibly looked at his manifesto and said, let me just deliver on that promise. He went beyond and said, if we want to begin change, let's start from the basics. So today we talk about, let's say, 11 crore toilets built. Now, if you imagine that there are 3 people in every family, imagine, Maria, before 2014, 33 crore people, by that math, were defecating in the open. Yes. Nobody thought about them. I remember your channel particularly in 2013. I was in one of the debates, and one of the researches which came up in your channel was that 40 to 45% women had crime done against them when they went out to defecate. 45% women were facing sexual abuse because they went out to defecate. So when the Prime Minister says, let's build a toilet, it's also about female security. But what is fascinating is that our country has had a female Prime Minister. But it took a male Prime Minister. So imagine how many myths are now shattered. That a man can stand at the ramparts of the Red Fort and say, this is a government that gives sanitary pad at 1 rupee.
Yes.
For years on end, Indian men have been derided the world over that men in our country are not pragmatic, are not equal partners. And here is a man who not only spoke and provided for that 1 rupee sanitary pad, but the menstrual hygiene protocol administratively in your country was established by that man and not the female Prime Minister. So I think that there are a lot of societal myths that stood shattered. One, that rural India wouldn't know what to do with technology. Two, that we have to have governments that are to be dedicated only to female emancipation. There is one leader in particular who spoke only about female empowerment. But now you have a Prime Minister who says that things need to change. Women are not wanting handouts. If you want this country to grow, you need women to be equal partners. It has to be women-led development. And that is a tectonic shift in narrative, politically, societally.
And homes in name of women, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana.
Again, I will attract your attention to research. We have debated as a society years on end on domestic violence. There was a presumption that domestic violence cases are found in families that do not belong to the upper echelons of the economy. However, research after research has shown that it's as much an urban phenomena, as much a phenomena in rich families, well-to-do families, as it is in, let's say, an economically challenged family. But what research also tells you, that just because a woman has a salary or a paycheck is no guarantee for protection against domestic violence. What does bring down violence against women is when they start owning property. And the comparative research says that violence against women who hold property, domestic violence, is down to 2%, as compared to violence against women domestically, which oscillates between 40 to 43%. So imagine when the Prime Minister says that I will ensure that women either jointly or singularly own a home. These are women from the economically lower strata of society, the poorest of the poor. And 2 crore such women today own a home in their names. That is such empowerment. Never gets headlined. Sorry for murdering the Queen's language, but it is the truth.
So 2 more years to go as far as this
Why
tenure
only
is,
2?
2 more years as far as this tenure is concerned.
Thank you.
So what is more in the works, ma'am?
Like I said, you are not utopian, you are an evolving society. You are in the throes of celebrating 75 years of your independence, but you're also a society that looks at the next 25 years of building your country infrastructurally, societally, culturally, educationally, financially, through all means possible. So when you say, should I be myopic enough to pronounce something for the next 2 or 5 years? The Prime Minister implores you to look at the next 25 years. Why not? So what is it that you need? So when the Prime Minister says that we will ensure that every family has tap water, which is clean, on one hand I applaud him, because since 2019 till now, over 6 crore families now have tap water, which again, if you do maths, per family, if you had 3 members, 18 crore people did not have tap water. They now have tap water. When the Prime Minister says every poor Indian shall now have a roof, we've already ensured that over 2 crore homes are delivered to the poorest of the poor. When the Prime Minister says, let's help assist women who are pregnant and lactating so that we can promote institutional delivery, thereby bringing down maternal mortality rate, bringing down infant mortality rate. Today, I'm happy to share with you that over 2.5 crore women in the past, not 8 years, just since 2017 have got over 10,000 crore rupees only because they were pregnant and they needed that 1 or 2 days to take leave so that they could go to the doctor, get themselves checked, get their vaccination, get their iron medication, folic acid medication and come back home. So there are very verticals where the government is helping the life cycle continuum of a citizen. So till such time, when you talk about, let's say, nutrition, it's an intergenerational issue. If you have a malnourished, anemic woman and man today give birth to a child, that child will have nutritional challenges. Which means, when did this challenge emanate? That couple possibly born 2 decades ago. So challenges are aplenty, but what you're assured of is a government dedicated to solution.
We have seen you campaign in all elections, recently in UP, before that in Bengal. Smriti Irani, BJP leader, Smriti Irani, minister, which role you enjoy more? Or would you say that because you are working 24/7, it's interlinked?
I think every woman is working 24/7. Some happen to be in front of the camera, some are sitting behind it. And you know why the men are clapping?
Yes.
They're saying, thank God I'm not a woman. Because when you're a working woman, you walk a double-edged sword every day. You respond not only to society, to family, to your workstation, you respond to yourself. Particularly now when you're a working woman, you're supposed to be a superwoman, who is not supposed to break down, who doesn't need a holiday, who doesn't need me time, who cannot crib and complain, who possibly will have to reach and complete deadlines before the deadline. Sorry to all the gentlemen in the room, but you can skip a deadline. We can't afford it. And look at all the women who are smiling. So I think that if you're a woman, it is a challenge.
Yes.
There are many girls who are mollycoddled and fed, and there are some young ones here that just succeed and things will be okay. Nope. They are as tough. Success doesn't guarantee that you will be bereft of challenges. Success doesn't guarantee that you will be bereft of humiliation. Success doesn't guarantee that you will be bereft of all the disadvantages that you felt that you have to meet because you're not successful. Success only means now you have more experience to deal with the blows.
And you set new targets and new achievements.
I don't want to sound very philosophical, but Maria, we sit in a hotel today in the center of New Delhi. I was born exactly, and I'm sitting exactly 5 to 10 kilometers away from where I was born. And my parents had absolutely no money, so my dad's friend gave him a room above his tabela. When I was born in 76, my parents had $150. When I went to Mumbai and I got myself the first job in media, at that time the last money in my pocket was 200 rupees. The year was 2000. And I'm sitting here today in 2022 as cabinet minister. So if you ask that kid who's there in that tabela, what do you want? That kid may have a laundry list. If you ask a woman at 46, what do you want? I have achieved what is unimaginable because I have done it ramrod straight. My spine never bent, never broke. The attitude never changed. There is a heavy cost to it, but I did it on my own terms. So today I am grateful that I lived a life which is so fulfilling. Do I want to be greedy? No. I take life every day as it comes because every other day is nothing but an additional blessing.
After defeating Rahul Gandhi in 2019, when he had to move to Wayanad, you have spent 30 hours in Rahul Gandhi's constituency to review various.
I think that's more than he spent.
To review the progress of various central schemes. So everybody is wondering as to where you are heading, while continuing to be a member of Parliament of Amethi in 2024.
I was just in another newsroom and they asked me whether I'm headed to Delhi. You are asking me whether I'm headed to Wayanad. I think what is good for me is that you think that Smriti Irani can retrofit anywhere. I went to Wayanad on an administrative assignment to look at the aspirational district work. The MP of Wayanad was invited to that meeting because it's the MP along with the district administration that needs to enforce many issues. Why the MP at that day chose to be in Kathmandu is for that MP to speak on. My trip to Wayanad got highlighted because the MP chose to be out of the country. The trip was not highlighted because of issues that should have been highlighted. It is a predominantly tribal area. And there was segment after segment of people living there who had challenges with housing facilities, with water, who had challenges with medical facilities. There were families after families who had agricultural needs which were not met by the administration. I speak about water. When I asked one of the officers how many tap connections are not available in families, what is the number of families that don't have it, he told me, and subject to correction to my notes, over 1,90,000 homes don't have taps there. And my second question to the officer was that question ever asked by the local MP? He said no. So I think that my intent, and when you draw a parallel with Rahul Gandhi, there is actually no parallel. One, I'm not a political prodigy. I'm a self-made woman. Second, I serve the constituency that has elected me to serve it. The intent there was to ask questions that should have been administratively asked and be assured of the response of the district administration and the state government. Just that. Everything I do in life is not about Rahul Gandhi.
Okay, but we have seen BJP, your party, you are the person who always takes center stage whenever it is issues related to Rahul Gandhi, and also something to do with Aam Aadmi Party recently, that is Mr. Satyendra Jain. You asked 10 questions to
And the
Arvind
man
Kejriwal.
forgot. उसकी याददाश्त चली गई.
Arvind Kejriwal, you asked him 10
उनकी नहीं
questions.
शायद. I have read in media reports कि आपने 10 सवाल किया और उनकी याददाश्त चली गई. So I was like,
Yes, and you asked questions also after that when Rahul Gandhi has faced 3 rounds of questioning, 10 hours every day, and there'll be more questioning again. So the opposition says that this is some
I
kind
love
of
the
targeting.
underlining sympathy in your question about Rahul Gandhi's rounds of questioning.
No, I'm saying that there'll be another round of questioning that will happen on Monday, so there'll be several
I wouldn't
more.
know. I'm not from the ED. I just know this, that if any one of you were called for an investigation, could any one of you say, आज नहीं आ सकता, Monday आऊँगा? Anyone in this room? If God forbid any one of you broke the law, could you call friends and families and supporters from around the country, come, let's burn some tires in the national capital? And as far as Mr. Jain goes, is there anybody in this room, and there are many people who are quite celebrated, quite economically adept, who has 200 bighas in the national capital? And then forgot about it.
Recently, there was two BJP leaders, Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal, they have been suspended from the party. We saw a lot of outrage. There were protests on the streets as well. How do you view these comments?
I think for a society to be respectful to each other, we need to desist from 9 o'clock news provocations. That my party has made it stand clear that we respect everybody's religion. That also includes my religion. So my individual take on this is that, and you and I have been professional colleagues for years on end, and I come with a surname called Irani. So when I used to travel overseas, I was subject to special scrutiny because my surname is Irani. So I am of the opinion that mutual respect is the way forward. Mutual respect is the underlining foundation of how this country is to prosper. Operative word is mutual. And I also believe that while we are not only party spokespeople and representatives, we are first and foremost Indians. We need to recognize that respect for each other in discourse, no matter how competitive our politics gets, is the need of the hour.
What will you be telling those who are protesting against Agnipath? The protests have turned violent.
I have on record the Honorable Minister for Defence appealing to people to look at the policy, its merits. I have the Chief speaking about the merits of this. And forget the politics of it. If you cannot look and listen to the armed forces themselves, there is not much that I can add, just repeat the appeal for peace. But one needs to introspect as a country. Can a call of duty be served by those who burn the country and its assets down? क्या मैं अपने घर को आग जलाकर फिर ये अपेक्षा कर सकती हूँ कि घर की पहरेदारी आपको दी जाएगी? जब तुम खुद ही खाक कर दोगे तो सुरक्षा करने के लिए बचेगा क्या? So for every challenge, there is a platform available for engagement, for discourse, for deliberation, for dialogue. For every myth that was propagated, and especially by those who are not available to their own constituents, who are busy burning tires outside the ED office. Their only desire is to see India burn. Their only desire is to have on their platforms men give call to arms and calls to assassinate the Prime Minister of India. जो आग लगा रहे हैं, जो माचिस हाथ में थमा रहे हैं, आप उनके भोग ना बने. The government has categorically cleared many myths and misconceptions about the scheme. And I would implore everybody to hear that in detail. And if you need more details, to engage and ask your public representative, because much has been said on this. But again, can the nation be secured by those who try to burn it down?
On that note, I'm going to open the floor for questions. There
right,
are
if
several
we could-
hands now.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
I'm gonna
Toya?
come right here. I'm going to try to not come back to the same person again. Let's go.
Namaste, Smriti ji. It was wonderful listening to you speak about women empowerment today. I'm Zeba, and thank you for the opportunity. My question for you is, we have seen you contest from Chowk constituency in Lok Sabha election in the past. Will we see you contest in Delhi Assembly election as the Chief Minister of Delhi in the future? I, as one, will be ecstatic to see you in the future as that role.
I
So your
think you were
comments.
looking for the word aesthetic and not aesthetic. My apologies, I'm an English teacher's daughter. But insofar as Delhi goes, Ziva, you will see me tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock do a public meeting for my candidate in the by-election. But you will see the BJP in power in the Delhi national capital. Thank you.
I am going to... Yes. Where? Are you pointing at something? Yes. Okay. All right. We're going to come all the way back. 1 second. I'll give it to you. 1 second. Do you want to stand or you will?
I'll stand.
Okay.
Can I take the
Yeah,
mic?
of course.
Good evening, everybody. And Mantri Saab, your discussion was very insightful and very aspiring. Especially your personal journey is very motivational. My question to you is, you have been very successful in your entertainment industry. Now you've been very successful as a politician. Can we say Smriti Irani has a Midas touch? Or what is the secret of his success?
You can see the glory, but you've never seen the exasperation. I think that I am blessed particularly because people rarely get to have one successful career in one field. I am a part of two of the toughest fields in this country, media and politics. Both these fields, you have to be an inherent hard worker and you have to have potential, otherwise you will never find your feet. The fact that I could equally compete with men and find a space for myself, I think is a great blessing. Many people talk about just hard work or good luck. It has to be divine intervention. Otherwise, like I gave an answer before, you can't come from a poor background. Be unapologetic about your ideology. Be uncompromising on your principles. Be a woman and still make it in two fields. So that God has to be particularly kind. Because there have been people who possibly can outdo me in hard work, outdo me in talent and capacity. So I just think that God has been particularly kind. Beg your pardon?
So do you think the stars do count?
I don't know about stars. May I know your name, sir?
Pradeep Gupta.
Pradeep ji, my mother does not have my time of birth. So no matter how many people think that I have some fantastic astrologer somewhere, I don't have a patri.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do we have
There
more
are
questions?
questions. Yes.
I'm going to hold the mic. Okay.
Yeah. Ma'am, this was very, very interesting what you have said. I am adding to the question what the gentleman has spoken just now. If you get a chance after 2 years or 1 year, will you come back to the stardom entertainment industry? We would like to see you in some of the roles.
And your opinion is that politics is not entertaining.
No.
Your name, sir?
Yeah, my name is Raj Kapoor. but not 420.
नहीं सर, वो तो एक पर्टिकुलर खानदान के लिए आरक्षित है.
Can we take more questions? Yes. Yeah? All right. Ma'am, I'm coming to you one sec. Yes.
Hi, Prachi from the Emerging Markets Foundation. Our job is to bring investor money to emerging markets, of which India is one. Smriti ji, does the falling female labor force participation rates in India keep you awake at night? And if so, what are you going to do about it?
Thank you, Prachi, for asking that question. When you look at participation of women in economic enterprises, you need to quantify that over 7 million self-help groups in our country in the past 5 years have received over 4 lakh crore of revolving funds and credit access, particularly only from one department. That across 60 departments of Government of India every year, apart from this 4 lakh crores, every year in the past 8 years, self-help groups alone in this country have received over 1,30,000 crores, which is bigger than my ministry budget. The question that needs to also be added is that when you look at Mudra Yojana, again, female enterprise out of the 32 crore loans given have received over 70% overwhelming credit access support from this government. Also, if you look at Stand Up India and the credit access to up to 1 crore rupees, 80% of the beneficiaries are women. So while you are looking at the transition of women from the unorganized sector into the organized sector, and the disruption is what you're speaking about, I'm sure you're aware of the Labour Ministry report which talks about the distortion in number and how that number again reached a particular status where pre-pandemic levels have been reached. But let me say this, for how long will we want to essentially focus only on female as labor? When will we start quantifying the entrepreneurial prowess of Indian women? Is it now time to have that indice as well?
Yeah. We have quite a bit of time, so if... Come.
Madam, my name is Vijay Tiwari, and I have one question. You mentioned about washrooms made in India under Modi ji's scheme. Of course, we all are for Modi ji, we vote for Modi ji, we love Modi ji, no two opinion. And we have high respect for you also because you are a self-made person.
There is a but coming, Tiwari ji. What is that but?
I have one thing to say, that you said that female prime minister could not perhaps note or could not perhaps carry out. But can we ignore that female prime minister contribution that she cut?
I am not ignoring any prime minister's contribution, male or female.
Yes,
My position is, Tiwari ji, only this, and I said this about all Indian men. And why I am saying it, allow me to quantify it. From the 1960s, there has been a legislation pending in this country which had to do with medical termination of pregnancy for women in advanced stages of pregnancy, up to 24 weeks. This is a contentious issue the world over, especially if you look at US politics right now. You will see that the Roe versus Wade controversy is enraging that entire nation. Every time I represented India on the international stage, I was told that men in my country are not supportive and are not progressive enough to accept emancipated women. I kept defending men in my country in absentia on international forums. And I said, show me one example where Indian men have fallen short. And why this controversy raged internationally is because of crime against women numbers, which became a source of much debate in our country. There was a whole movement internationally done about Indian men, as though every Indian man is criminal in intent when it comes to Indian women. And I have fought that perception about Indian men for a decade and a half now, internationally. And today, as an administrator, what gets me greater pride is the fact that a legislation that has been pending for 4 decades of medical termination of pregnancy at 24 weeks was passed unanimously by Parliament, and not a single Indian man opposed it. So now when I go onto the world stage, I say those who have been painting Indian men as though they are the enemy of women in my country need to know that yes, issues of law and order are a challenge, but we are now a country progressively meeting those challenges. As an administration, we are providing for infrastructure to meet that challenge. But let's stop painting my country as though everybody in my country belongs to the dark ages. That was my limited point.
We'll take 2 more questions, Toya.
Yeah, all right. I by mistake went to him again also.
Toya, last table.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm going to go all the way here. Yes.
I'm very thankful to my government. My government में recognize मुझे जो 270 सर्टिफिकेट्स दिए गए और प्राइम मिनिस्टर श्री नरेंद्र मोदी के हाथ से मुझे बर्थडे ग्रीटिंग्स हर साल आता है. तो ये आइडिया आपने बहुत अच्छा सिलेक्ट किया. और आपकी गवर्नमेंट के पहले जब हम चिट्ठी लिखते थे सरकार को तो 3-4 महीने के बाद तो चिट्ठी पहुंचती थी और 3-4 महीने के बाद उसका जवाब आता था. तो ये मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि इंस्टेंट है आपका इतना हाजिर जवाब, आपका हाजिर जवाब एक्शन. दिस इज द एक्शन, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ एक्शन. तो ये पॉजिटिविटी में बहुत अच्छी लगी एंड इट शुड एवरीबडी शुड ज्वाइन mygovernment.in.
Thank you, sir. Don't look at me astoundedly.
Do we have, all right, because that wasn't a question, I will try to get one more question in. Right, but also him. Yeah.
You're against men in kurtas.
Namaskar, Irani ji. Myself is Amit from Million Minds. I have one problem and the suggestion as well. Government has, invested huge resources in last 7-8 years on the Skill India. And there is a reservation for 33% for the women and the girls. But whereas once the, the agencies are training those girls and then this trained workforce are not in a position to deploy to industry locations or maybe the urban location wherever the placements opportunities are there. And the reason for is largely there is a compliance issues mainly for the MSMEs and the smaller mid-size organizations कि अगर आपको women employment देना है तो there has to be a different compliances, separate toilet and all those things.
तो मतलब महिलाएं अगर अपना उनका टॉयलेट ना हो
वर्क लोकेशन पे
वर्क लोकेशन पे नहीं होना चाहिए.
होना चाहिए.
हाँ तो वो कंप्लायंस अगर वो नहीं करते हैं फॉलो तो फिर
हाँ तो they prefer to hire the boys and the men.
So you are telling me that companies prefer not to build a toilet separately for women.
Correct. That is one. Second, one way we have done the empowerment and the some this increasing the pregnancy
so the
leave.
lady who was asking me questions about why the labor force participation is low, maybe you're answering that question?
No, I am answering the question and suggesting as well the solution. Right? Because of the cost goes up for the organizations.
Can you please tell me which are these companies that refuse to make toilets for women?
It is not driven by the name of the companies. It is driven by the
आपका
cost.
अनुभव होगा, एक दो तो होंगे.
मैं आपको बहुत सारे दे दूंगा.
दे दीजिए लिस्ट.
मैं आपको लिस्ट दे दूंगा. मैं सोल्यूशन दे रहा हूँ आपको.
नहीं मुझे सोल्यूशन नहीं, मुझे पहले लिस्ट दीजिए, सोल्यूशन मैं ढूंढ लूंगा.
आप ऑडिट करा दीजिए सारे MSMEs का. आप लार्ज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का ऑडिट करा दीजिए.
जी आपने कहा ना कि कोई कंपनी ऐसी है हिंदुस्तान में जो कहती है औरत को मर्द के टॉयलेट में जाना चाहिए और औरतों के लिए अलग से टॉयलेट नहीं बनाना चाहती. वो कौन सी कंपनी, उसके नाम
नहीं ऐसा नहीं कहते मैम. वो अपनी कॉस्ट ड्राइव करने के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से
वो मेरे को लिस्ट दे दीजिए सर.
मैं ठीक है
आप मुझे दे दीजिए.
मेरा सजेशन अगर आप सुनना.
आई एम श्योर कि मरिया भी वहाँ पे इन्वेस्टिगेटिव रिपोर्टर भेजना चाहिए. मैं भी लेबर मिनिस्ट्री से किसी को बोलना चाहूंगी.
हाँ मेरा एक सजेशन है.
थैंक यू सो मच. थैंक यू.
अमित जी दे दीजिएगा लिस्ट, आप चिंता ना करें, मैं नहीं भूलूंगी.
ओके
ऑलराइट, थैंक यू वेरी मच.
मिलियन माइंड्स.
थैंक यू.
या
We are done with time.
Yes,
so,
I think so much. Ma'am, your final thoughts.
I need to build that toilet. I think that the fact that you have today some of the best minds in this room, and one gentleman can get up and say, well, you can skill women.
Yes.
But there are companies in my country which don't want to build a toilet separately for women, which means that the problem is not administrative. The problem is not legislative. The fact that the gentleman has not reported such companies to the Labour Commissioner. So, like I said, there are challenges which will come as long as you are dedicated to the solutions. What is India capable of? When the pandemic struck, in 2020 February, I was in textiles then, we did a count of how many PPE suits did India have. Our yearly consumption was 55,000 and all of it was imported. WHO gave us the standards for building PPE suits on the last day of February 2020. I distinctly remember that we did not have a single machine. We did not have raw material. International borders were shutting down. A colleague of mine, and very distinguished so, has joined you in the audience, Jai Shankar ji. I remember calling him and telling him, I have 30 machines. International borders are shutting down. We need to fly them in from Japan. Can you help? He said, give me the location, tell me where the machines are, I will get them. I remember Hardeep Puri was aviation minister. I called him and I said, can you give us a flight? He said, absolutely. I called up somebody to say, can you donate money because I can't give money as government. They gave their CSR funds. We were 60 of us, Maria, when everything was shutting down. 60 of us where the minister's room was uprooted into a command center. We had the entire apparel industry come together and we sat cracking our heads as to कैसे हम PPE suit अपने देश में बनाएंगे. We had a lady in Phagwada who said, I think I have the raw material, I don't know how to seal it. I called the lady at 11:30 at night and I said, can we test what you have? The lady said, test तो कर लोगे लेकिन सब बंद है. How do I take it because the lab is in Coimbatore? We called the police and the local DM. They took the sample, we sent it to Coimbatore, tested it, and everybody in the country who could possibly manufacture it knew it in the next 48 hours that this is where the raw material is. How do you seal it? We called DRDO. DRDO said, okay, we will tell you how to seal the whole thing. And we said, we only have one lab, can you help us turn around labs? They turned around 11 labs in the country in 15 days. Why am I telling you this? Because a country which could never manufacture PPE suits, in lockdown manufactured domestically and became the second largest exporter in the world. We had 7,000 crores worth of business in 3 months. 5 lakh people worked in lockdown. And not a single rupee of subsidy went from the government of India. It was all a collective effort between people and their government. And when you tell me what do you envisage in the next 25 years, this is the partnership that needs to strengthen. That yes, somebody in the audience will get up and say there is a problem. And you will have somebody in this government saying, tell me where the problem is, I will go and find a solution. So, does not matter if you're a man, woman, other gender, child, you can be assured that while you sleep at night, your government is awake looking for solutions so that you can have a better day tomorrow.
Thank you so much. On that note, Smriti Irani, always a pleasure to speak to you, ma'am. Thank you for coming on our platform and addressing the audience.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank the Honorable Minister and Maria, but I'll